Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. But I'm going to get into, matter of fact, let me get my other phone. This is the title that I, wanted to go with because the Spirit named this particular lesson. I was watching the other Makama did a Yapa lesson going into these devils. They tried, naming this lesson is going to be, they tried to erase all the blood shed of Christianity and make it all about love now. Hear what I said? They tried to erase all the bloodshed of Christianity and make it all about love today. So that's what you have, in this love fest called Christianity. But I'm gonna show you the origins of this particular Christianity that was created by the so-called white man. That he stole our book and repackaged Christianity to what you have today. Like he's a thief. He steal everything. How do you marvel that he would steal a Bible? He would paint the images that look like so-called white people, and he actually would interject and change doctrines, change words, change definition of words, all kind of madness. As you seen in this picture, and the so-called Native Americans would be the tribes of Israel, Reuben and Gad, for the most. A lot of them was classified as so-called black, Negro. The modern day images that you're seeing of so-called Native Americans have been whitewashed in a lot of cases, and a lot of times, a lot of our brethren was lighting up, because of the mingling, so on and so forth. But you see this image. This is a powerful image right here. You see that that image that's on that cross. That's the image that's in most of the people's minds in the Western world. This is what they see, even in other countries that's outside of the so-called West. They still see this image because this is the tool that they use on so-called white supremacy. I'm gonna play this video, and you Christians, especially you so-called white Christians, you Edomite Christians, you're very hypocritical because now you made a religion where you put on the illusion that it's all about love, 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 love and forgiveness, and all this good stuff, right? But yet you won't go into any of the history that how they raped, robbed, killed, pillaged, split families, put the so-called Native Americans in boarding schools. You made our people become Christians as well. Fed babies to alligators. You used to actually come out your white Christian church, so-called white Christian church, and they used to do lynchings. They used to have so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native American men and women and children, and they'll lynch them out to come out of that church service. Imagine that. Let me back this up.
Americans through colonization, boarding schools, and missionary efforts. Yet today, many Native people voluntarily embrace the religion. Some see it.
Why do they do that? Because they brainwash, like you so-called blacks, Hispanic, and the Native Americans embrace Christianity today. The same thing, because you've been indoctrinated, you've been brainwashed. Let's keep going.
As a betrayal of indigenous traditions, while others view it as a personal choice or a way to blend spiritual beliefs. So why are so many Native Americans converting to Christianity? And what does this mean for Native identity? One major reason is historical influence.
Listen up to this.
Since the 1600s, Christian missionaries have worked to convert Native populations, often through force, bribery, and coercion. Many Native children were taken from their families and placed in boarding schools, where they were forbidden to practice their traditional beliefs and were forced to adopt Christianity.
Even after they were forced, and this other book, matter of fact, I went into these books before, but one of my books got pages that they're actually making so-called Native Americans, which would be the tribe of Israel, the Gadites and Reubenites, convert to Christianity. In a lot of cases, what they would do is burn them, put them to death, put dogs on them. If they didn't convert, they'll basically put them to death. There was a death sentence if you didn't convert to Christianity. So how the fuck is it all about love today?
After these schools closed, Generations of native families were raised with Christian teachings, making it a lasting part of some tribal communities.
You hear this madness?
Another factor is community integration. Many native people live in areas where churches provide support, food assistance, and social services, making conversion a practical choice. In some cases, Christianity is viewed as a source of healing, especially for those struggling with poverty, addiction, or trauma. As Cherokee pastor Richard Twist stated.
And that's why a lot of these Jakes, you know what I'm saying? When I say Jakes, I'm talking about the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans, when they give up a vice, right? So they got a drinking problem or smoking demon on them. They feel like when they give it up, right, they get it like the God. And they run to that Christian church as a refuge because that's all they know out of their ignorance. So let's just get into this lesson. First off, I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm going to show you an image. First off, this image right here is the image. This is the representation. This is the mascot of the modern day Christianity that you have today, which the Messiah don't look like. This like a woman right here. This look like an actual effeminate man. This is in the likeness of a woman. So this is who they created the Messiah, the new image, to be. And they made him passive. They made him effeminate. And they make him love everybody. But that's not the true Messiah out of the Bible. He's an idol. And you go to your typical Christian, evangelical, your Methodists. These are all these Edomites that are under this spell as well, because they're in love with this guy. See, all these people in this crowd, you go through all these denominations of Christianity. And let me make another point too. If you Christians supposed to be worshiping the same God, why is there so many different denominations of Christianity? You got Methodists, you got Baptists, you got Presbyterian, you got Seventh-day Adventists. I can keep going. You got all Calvinism, Mormonism. If y'all supposed to be worshiping the same God, why is there so many different denominations, which means it's different doctrines? So that means it can't, y'all not on one accord. So that's confusion. Going back to this guy. So all these Edomite women, they say praise God and they throw their hands up and they act like they fainting and act like they talking in tongues. And talking in tongues is actually them speaking in a coherent language for you knuckleheads. This is what they see in their mind. This is an idol. So the so-called white man, what he did, he crafty. When he got possession of the Bible, he created his idols. Like they did in the Greek Empire. They created Zeus and Apollo. The Roman Empire, they had all these different deities that they worship. So Jesus, is just another extension of these idols. So that's the idol of the so-called white man, God of Christianity. But it ain't got nothing to do with the God out of the Bible, the power out of the Bible, and the Messiah. It says Psalms 96:5. It says, for all the gods of the nations, and Esau, Edom is a nation, so-called white people. It says all the gods of the nations, and this includes Elam, Moabites, all these so-called Chinese, so-called East Indian. You go through all these different nations, they got nothing but idols. They pray to the objects. They pray to these vain pictures. It says, but the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua made the heavens. So the Lord put a heavy spirit on us to be able to navigate through this madness and this confusion, because this is the representation, this is the mascot of modern day Christianity. And why is this such a big deal? Because this is a lie. This is the biggest lie that's ever been told in history. When you see this guy in your mind, you're under some heavy witchcraft. Let's go here. And then, the hypocritical nature of you Christians, that it's all about love all of a sudden. It's about love and forgiveness, but you don't want to identify any of this history, which all this history comes with a slew of lies. Because when you build one lie, you got to build another lie. So this is the whole foundation of Christianity, built on lies and witchcraft. It says right here, what Christianity teaches versus how Christianity was spread. It's very important what I'm about to read to you. It says modern Christianity emphasizes love, forgiveness, humility, turn the other cheek, which people don't even understand what that's talking about, and that was only pertaining to Israelites. But the historical spread of Christianity, especially after it became tied to the state power, often did the opposite. They did the opposite. Once Christianity fused with empire, starting with Constantine in the 4th century, which Constantine was a so-called black man. He was a Jake, but he was into some heavy idolatry. It said it stopped being a persecuted faith and became a political weapon. It says from there you get now when you go into the 1600s, right? The Renaissance. This what came with the so-called white man getting his hands on the Bible, creating these lies, painting images, and acting like he was the people, and also spreading all these false doctrines. It says forced conversions. It says destruction of pagan temples and cultures. It says colonial missions backed by armies. It says rape, enslavement, land theft justified as saving souls. They use that same jargon to this very day. It says genocide of indigenous peoples framed as God's will. That contradiction isn't accidental, it's structural. Let's see what else I want to go to. Right here. It says forced conversion violates the core idea of faith. It says belief by threat is not belief. Yet historically, convert or die. Convert or lose your children. Convert or be enslaved. Convert or be labeled subhuman. That directly contradicts, what you people say today. You know what I'm saying? It's about love and, you ain't got no love in your heart and all this. You accuse us of so-called hate speech, but hold up. Was not the Christianity built on hate, rape, robbery, death, all kind of madness, idolatry, lies, criminality? So you people got some nerves, man. It says, why modern Christians struggle to admit this? A lot of them so stupid they don't know the history. And a lot of them have that cognitive dissonance when they not want to accept the information that's being presented because they don't line up to what they've been taught. Because admitting it means accepting that Christianity wasn't just misused. It was repeatedly aligned with power, dominance, and violence. Moral authority was claimed while committing atrocities. Yeah, so the so-called white man, that's the definition of a hypocrite. To say and do, say one thing, but yet do another. To talk about love, 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 but yet he's doing rape, robbery, genocide. In the name of this is in the name of Christianity. Lynchings, alligator bait. Changing people's names, changing their identity, giving them nothing to survive on, right? Stripping them from all resources, splitting up their families. And you go on down that treachery, demonic list. But all of a sudden, it's about love and forgiveness. And that's why we call you people the devil. And anybody that's in his mindset is the devil, even among our people, because a lot of them been indoctrinated to think this way. And that's why when we come with them, with the truth, they buck up against it. Why? Because they're sick. Let's go there. And the so-called white man got a lot to pay for. He got a rap sheet long as Texas. Let me let this load up. It says Psalms 50 and 16. But unto the wicked, Yahweh said, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes? That thou shouldest take my covenant in the mouth. So you got the Bible, you parade the Bible around, you use it as a prop. You have your judges and your magistrates swearing on the Bible, but you don't really follow nothing in it. You do your own thing. You got your own laws. You got your own constitution. So the Bible is used to put the witchcraft on the people. And then you got the J people that they got the Babylonian Talmud they believe in. The Torah is just a prop. So you devils have taken possession of the Bible. So you're guilty. Right? So I was gonna go to this that I came not to send bring peace but the sword. The Messiah came to bring the sword. He coming back to death and destruction. And hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Allah Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah Bahashim Rachak Qudash. Shalom.